Okay, so what I'm going to do here, rather than teach that solo as I normally would, I'm going to talk about the theory and the kind of ideas and the sounds behind it. This is so you can use the ideas behind it to build your vocabulary to make blues a bit more sophisticated, whether you want to put in kind of Latin, jazz or R&B undertones. If you do want to learn that intro solo, I'd suggest just listening to it, the tabs there, and also if it's a bit too fast or some bits are a bit too tricky, there should be a cog here if I've got my sides right. And if you click on that, you can make the video go 3/4 speed or half speed, which is absolutely fantastic for trying to learn things. That's probably enough talking, so let's just dive right into it. The first thing to point out here is one of the reasons I can make this the soloing over the back end a bit more sophisticated is the chords are a tiny bit more sophisticated as well. So rather than just being an A minor, a D minor and an E minor, the blues is over an A minor 7, D minor 7, E minor 7. There's also a jazz chord towards the end, but we'll come to that in due course. The reason I mention this is basically what I'm doing throughout the solo is extending the chords underneath, and I'm doing this by implying another chord over the top. Sounds a bit complicated, but as we go into it, it'll hopefully make sense. To show what I'm doing for each chord, I'll just go through this here. So over the A minor 7, I'll put that on the back now. I'm playing a C major or a C major 7 over the top of it to extend it. So if you just listen to that, that's more or less the shape I'm using. Obviously you could use different shapes. The same principle with the D minor 7. So I'll put that in the back now and I'll play over it. And I'm playing over that with an F major 7, right? That's essentially the shape I'm using. Again, you know, you could use ones here or whatever. The next chord with the E minor 7, what I'm doing is playing a G or a G7 chord over the top. So I'll put the E minor 7 in the back, and I'll play just a G over the top. And then I'll add in the 7, and you'll hear this can be quite tense. And what I'll do here is play some chromaticisms over it. And you can hear that those lend themselves to it quite nicely. In a nutshell, that is the theory behind what I'm doing here. There's a few tweaks to make it a bit more interesting here and there. If the theory doesn't make sense, as I said, I just concentrate on getting those sounds into your ear, and you can start getting them under your fingers, get into your vocabulary. And the very first bar I'm doing this, I'll just explain what the thinking behind that is. I'm basically trying to play a C major chord, right? You probably know it. That's the shape I'm thinking about. I'm just voicing these two notes and that one, right? And the reason I'm doing this is that if we play a C major chord with an A in the bass, see if I can play all of that, it's actually just an A minor 7 chord is what I'm implying. So the A minor 7 being the A, C, E, and then a G. So if you play a C, C, E, G with an A in the root, get an A minor 7. So that's what I'm doing here. Immediately try and apply that A minor 7 to show it's a little bit more sophisticated, and that's just a case of playing that G note essentially. The next part here, what I'm doing is syncopating things. So rather than, so that rhythm makes it a bit more kind of Latin, a bit more interesting. The note choice here, I'm kind of playing with this, right? Essentially what I'm doing is a C major 7 arpeggio is what I'm aiming for. I've stuck the A in there to kind of reference the root of the chord. You know, if you know this C major, this shape should make a bit more sense. But instead of going to here, I'm going to the A, as I said. And you can see that is pretty much from here. It's just a C major 7 arpeggio. Now, I'd mentioned the C major before, but I hadn't mentioned the C major 7, so like what was going on there? Well, the major 7 of the C major 7 implies the 9th of the A, so you get this 9. Right? So instead of it just being an A minor 7, we got a kind of 9th sign chords aren't changing, you're just staying as an A minor 7, but because the melody is applying this note, it makes it sound a bit more sophisticated, a bit more open, a bit more jazzy. So rather than do the full arpeggio, I opted to go to here to make it a little bit more interesting. Then I'm jumping over to here, just a C note down the octave, and this kind of wide interval thing is something you don't really hear in blues, so again, it's just a little trick. So far we've got extending the chords, syncopation, and doing kind of wider intervals. Little palm muting thing as well, that's another kind of Latin trick. And referencing the A, and I got this, right? Just classic R&B blues slide, just to keep things a little bit more in the box. It's like, it's okay, it's not going to get too jazzy, it's not going to get too out there, we're still in the kind of bluesy territory. Next thing I've got here, you might notice this, what I'm thinking of here is just the A minor, right? Just arpeggiating it. If you want this to sound a bit more Latin, if you add in a bit of palm muting, it's going to have that kind of funkier edge to it. What I'm doing, I'm going up to the 9th, up to the 3rd, up to the 4th, and this would be quite a tense note to resolve on over the A minor. Let's see if I can play it all together. I played that wrong, sorry, a mistake there. Quite tense, so what I do is bend up to the E, which is the 5th of A. This also means I get to move down a 5th to go resolve to A for the next chord of D minor 7, because the A is the 5th of D. Again, if the theory's getting a bit too heavy here, just listen to your ears and kind of feel how the notes are interacting with each other. It's almost more important to know the sound than to know the words behind behind the sound itself. So like I said, I've bent up to the 5th of the A, then I'm landing on the 5th note of the D, as I said, D minor 7. And what I'm doing here is the same principle I had for the A. So what I'm doing is I'm building a chord on the 3rd degree of the scale. So our D minor would be D, F, A, that's a D minor 7, so we've added in a C, right? But I'm building a chord off this F. So I've got an F, I've got an A, I've got a C, and rather than just make it an F triad, which as you can see here, here's a C-shaped F, if we put a D in the bass, it's just a D minor 7, right? Rather than do that, I'm extending it by making the F chord a bit more sophisticated and putting the E in, and this makes it an F major 7, which then implies the D minor add 9, a little bit more. So if we compare that to the standard blues chord, D minor, D minor 9. And the way I'm doing this is, if you know this arpeggio here, that's basically all I'm playing around with. I'm referencing the D every so often just to give a nod to, okay, I know there's a D underneath, I'm just trying to expand it a wee bit. The lick here, quite a kind of fiddly economy picking one, quite cool though, but it's basically just going down the arpeggio, going from the 5th to the 3rd, to the root, to the 7th, to the 5th, to the 3rd. And then rather than going to the root, that's when I'm referencing the D, hammering onto it. And then this again, I'm just kind of going for that arpeggio but adding in some of the notes to make it a bit more interesting, a bit less kind of linear. If you do things too many arpeggios, it can sound a bit like an exercise in my opinion. Then I do go down to the root, and then I just do a wee little chromatic thing just to add in a bit more spice. So there all I'm doing is 2nd flat 3rd up to the 3rd. The 3rd here, this is one of the key things as well. You want your notes to join between chords. So 3rd, or which is really the 5th, right? The 3rd of the, sorry, this is kind of confusing here. The 3rd of the F major 7 which I'm playing is D's 5th, which is the chord we're playing over, D minor 7. And what note is that? It's an A, which is the root of the A minor 7, which is the chord we're playing over. So you want to kind of think ahead to get a note that's in both chords to kind of join them. After that, my brain's going, this is too much theory, so I'm just going for a kind of blues. Again, to anchor it and go, look, I'm not going to, there's a bit of a jazzy flourish there, it's a bit busy, it's a bit fancy, I'm going to bring it back, make it a bit easier to listen to, right? So here, this little thing I tried to do is basically imitating an organ. That sort of thing. Now, in a normal blues, I would probably go and keep the root held down. But again, I'm kind of trying to hint at this C or the C major 7. So I'm holding down that, which as you'll notice is just the top part of that C bar chord, and then using the blues note there. See, that's a bit more sophisticated sounding then. Yep. Next thing, again, this is the idea of joining the chords together. So I'm going from the third of the D minor 7, just sliding up a tone, to the third of the E minor 7. And again, when it comes to the E minor 7, what I'm doing is I'm extending the chord, so I'm building it on the 3rd degree. So the E minor 7. Now if I build a chord here, rather than be a major 7, because of the laws of theory, it dictates that it's in fact a dominant 7. So it's essentially I'm playing a G dominant 7 over an E minor 7. And the reason for this is exactly the same as before. What it does is it extends it. So if we look at the first 3 notes of the G triad, we can see that those are quite snugly in the D minor 7. The next note is going to apply the flat 9, which is a bit more jazzy and a bit more out there, but that's a good one to kind of hint at if you want to make things a bit more interesting. So like I said, the slide up, and then what I'm doing, this is a really kind of classic jazz move, so I'm going from, remember the chord I'm playing over is the E minor 7, but the chord I'm referencing is going to be the G dominant 7. So I've got the root of my G here, I'm going up to the 5th, and I'm just doing a little chromatic thing down. So it's going 5, flat 5 or sharp 4, depending on how you think of it, probably flat 5, 4, 3 to the root. Then I'm just arpeggiating it, so from here on, it's just an arpeggio, going 3rd root, 7, 5, 3rd root, sliding down to the 7th. And the reason I'm sliding down to the 7th is because it is the root of the F major 7, which I'm playing over the D minor 7. To give you a few other ideas of stuff you could do over that dominant 7 chord, because that's kind of like a key to jazz really. You could reference the minor 3rd, so you could do something like that. So I'm referencing the 6th there, and I'm hammering on, or sliding from the minor 3rd to the major 3rd. You know, there's other classic kind of things as well. It's in between jazz and blues, that kind of thing. You know, so you could go something that's referencing the flat 3rd. I've not chosen to do it here, but that's always going to sound quite cool. Anyway, I digress, back into what we're doing. So I've landed on this note, and I'm just doing, again, a little arpeggio. So if we think about our F major 7 shape here, doing a little, just going up it. Because I've slid down to the root here, what I'm doing is going to go 3rd, 5th, then I'm doing a root pull off to the 7th, down to the 5th, then this nice little 5 to 3 up the octave. I've also switched it here to triplets to give it a slightly more kind of different feel. And again, this is the kind of interval, these kind of, it's going to make things sound a bit more jazzy, maybe a bit more lounge as well, the wider intervals rather than the kind of close intervals of the blues. You might think this next little passage is a bit strange here, and it is a bit. What I'm doing is I'm playing this note here, which over the D is a major 6. The reason I'm doing this is it implies a sort of Dorian sound, and that, you know, to get that kind of Latin flavour again. It's just in passing, so it doesn't make a huge difference, but compared to just a little bit more edge to it. And again, what I've done here is I've slid up to this note, which is the root, or A minor 7, because that's the chord we're playing over now. And I'm just going to kind of do a blues thing. So I got here, and I was just going to lead in like this, use that as a chromatic, but I thought it'd be quite cool to reference that flat 2nd and then slide in, or go in from there. This final bar is where the aforementioned jazz chord takes hold of you, so it's actually quite a nice one. Quite dense, but it resolves nicely to the A minor. I'll do the go between them without talking so you can hear the tension and resolution. And what this is a dominant chord with a flat 13 on the top. 13th is a 6th interval above the octave. And it just adds a wee bit more tension, a bit more spice, and makes the resolution down to the minor a little bit stronger. And what I'm doing here is, if you know your scales, you know a mixolydian works over a dominant 7. I'm just going, okay, well, mixolydian works over a dominant 7, I'm playing a dominant 7 with a flat 6. So if I reference the flat 6 in there a bit, it's probably going to sound quite good. And that's what I'm doing. So we got that, like I said, that A dominant flat 13. I'm going for the root, 3rd, 5th. So starting an arpeggio, and I'm sliding up to that flat 6 to reference it. Then I'm continuing with the arpeggio, so I get 7 up to the octave. From here, I'm going to the 2nd, up to the 3rd, up to the 5th, up to the flat 6. So I'll recap that so far. Finishing it off, I'm going up to the 7th, slide into the root, and then I'm resolving down to an A, which is the root of the A, because we've changed chords in that bar. To make things extra jazzy, what I could have done is I could have added a flat 9 into this chord here, so that would sound something like this if I'd done it. I opted not to do that because I thought it was a little bit too tense, but if you wanted to add in the flat 9, you could add it in there, or here. So if you want it to sound more out there, a bit more Eastern. The other thing you can do with this chord is, because of the intervals, you can apply a bit more of the whole tone scale. So you could do something like, obviously resolving to the A there, and what I'm doing, the whole tone scale is, whole tones apart. You could even squeeze that note in as well, if you want to do it. It's going to sound quite cool, a bit more out there though. So to recap what we've looked at using chords over the chord to extend it, make it more interesting. We've looked at syncopation, so playing a bit off the beat. We've looked at doing arpeggios of a different chord over the chord to make it more luscious. We've looked at doing little Rnb slides. Looked at muting arpeggios and kind of palm muting in general to make things a little bit more funky, like I did with that. Same idea. Looked at using legato and wider intervals to make things sound a bit more spacious. Thrown in standard blues licks to again anchor it into the genre. Kind of doing some sort of organ, slightly more sophisticated organ licks in terms of the harmonic vocabulary. Looked at using chromaticisms, particularly over the dominant 7 chord. We looked at following the chords underneath and trying to target notes that help you pivot between the chords more smoothly. And then we looked at a basic approach to playing over some sort of jazz chord, how you could approach that using the knowledge you already have and just tweaking a little bit here and there. Having said all that, you could also approach this backing track with more of a standard blues vocab, and it'll work well too. If this has been a bit too complicated or a bit too advanced for any of you, please let me know, and what I could do is another video showing the kind of the scales themselves and maybe talk about chord construction a little bit. But hopefully it has been of some use to you guys, in which case please consider to share, like, comment, subscribe if you feel so inclined. Cheers guys.